is Floyd Penkhus. I was born and raised in Templeton, and my dad was Henry Penkhus. Everybody in Templeton called him Pink, and he and my mother had a grocery store there. And I went to a little public school for my kindergarten, and I don't remember how I got started so early, but I graduated from high school at age 16.
All right.
And that's a pretty young age. But anyway, I grew up in Templeton, went to school there, and Dad had this grocery store, and I always had a place to go to hang out and maybe sack some prunes and do something like that.
Era. Do you have any memories as a kid of Templeton Rye being around, or anything having to do with the whiskey?
Oh, sure do, because my dad, I think, knew who was really involved in this product, and so when I'd say I'm going to go see like lamb swaller, and you've heard of lamb swaller.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, now when you go, he said, don't you can't go downstairs there. Well, of course, and he would tell me that with so many different places you can go, but you can't go downstairs. So apparently he was always protecting the dad of the home place,
Mm-hmm.
where they were making this liquor. And and of course, by the time I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I think I was carrying 100-pound sacks of sugar out to these cars. And they didn't use that much sugar on their dining room table, I'm sure, Nothing. I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed of what these guys are doing. And I think that's evidenced by Frank Bookite, the sheriff from Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
When you heard that story too,
Mm-hmm.
he put on his hat when he went out of the office. That meant he's going to Templeton, and the
Mm-hmm.
gals would get on the phone and call people down there and spread the word,
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's about a block or two from my home one time, and I can't believe this now, but it seems like it's in my memory that they just dumped it out in the street.
Really?
Now, yeah, and run down the gutter, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine why they would do that, because that's dumping their livelihood out there,
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I heard. I've got a scar on my leg where I went pheasant hunting with my dad, and we were walking along a fence row, and I was trying to kick the pheasants out of there, and when my foot went down in a hole. And do you know what that was?
It was where they hid the whiskey?
Yeah, you just take this wooden post and pull it over, and they'd reach down that hole and bring up a gallon or two. I think they had about 3 gallons down in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm quite sure that one of my uncles, 2 of them in fact, did not make it or distill the whiskey, but they dealt in it.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had their customers, and they would just send somebody out a mile south of town or 2 miles south of town, 1 mile east, and the third post hole or something like that.
So they were sort of brokers of it.
That's what I feel, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because one of my uncles, I've never known him to have a business or a job. So I think this was his job, this we didn't know about.
Mm-hmm. So your father wasn't, your father or mother, the store wasn't directly involved in making the whiskey, but they sold a lot of sugar, probably an inordinate amount of sugar.
Exactly.
And I've heard that one of the ways that the revenue agents or the feds would investigate these people is by checking the sugar logs and things like that. And so he probably had to be pretty discreet about where that sugar went sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think Dad was ever checked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've heard stories where they get a carload of sugar in. I don't know that that's true, because that's a heck of a lot of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
But Dad would, we'd go to Carroll and get maybe 10 sacks, and maybe we'd go to Carroll every week or two and get more. It was real fun. I got in and graduated. I was fortunate enough to pass the flying test as well as the ground school test, which took about 9 months to complete, and I graduated in La Junta, Colorado, and went right into B-25s, because I had a choice of going to fighters or bombers, and I chose not to be in the fighter, because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to learn to fly real carefully and straight,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I went to B-25s, and I went training school in La Junta, Colorado, where I graduated, and then on down to Greenville, South Carolina, where I got ready to go overseas, learn fly formation and bomb runs. And
Was this during the war then?
Yeah, it was in 43.
Okay.
And so anyway, I'm all ready to go overseas. I've completed my training, you know, in there, and I'm all ready to go overseas. And my CO said, "Now you guys are going to be heading for overseas next week. So I'm going to give you a B-25. You can fly anywhere in the United States."
Wow, that's awesome.
And that was so neat of him. So I took off from Greenville, South Carolina, and flew up to somewhere in Missouri. I can't think of the name of it now. Refueled in Missouri. Called my mom and dad in Templeton and said, "I'll be there about 6:30, and you be outside watching for me." So then, as I got near Templeton, of course I'm approaching from the south, and I came in real low, you know, from out over about a mile south of town, right over Alphonse Carca's farm.
Mm-hmm.
And of course that B-25 was the noisiest, loud. And he said, well, then anyway, I flew over here and went over to town, flew all 4 directions over Templeton, and then waved my wings goodbye to my mom and dad. Incidentally, that was the biggest thrill I've ever had, to fly over my little hometown,
Mm-hmm.
and a little boy from Templeton, and gets to fly B-25 over his hometown. That was the thrill.
That sounds awesome.
So anyway, then and I went overseas, flew 68 missions over in Italy and India, and came back. And of course, when I came back, I was anxious to see Mom and Dad, so I went out to Templeton, and Alphonse Carca was there in the store one time. He said, "Is this your son, Pink?" And Dad said, "Yes." He called me over. He says, "You flew over my farm, and you chased every chicken I had. They flew over the fence." And he said, "That wasn't bad. We got them back. And you finally got the chickens back in the yard." But he said they never laid another egg after that. So yeah, it was so funny, because when I went back to see the grand opening, Templeton Rye, I told some people that were with me, I said, "No, I left here 60-some years ago. I probably won't know anyway, but I'm going to pick out the oldest person I can see here, and I'm going to ask him if the name Penkhus means anything." So I go in, and I looked him over, and there's this tall fella standing there, and you know, I thought he was probably one of the older guys. And I said, "Pardon me, but does the name Penkhus mean anything to you?" He said, "Sure." I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Carca." Well, I said, "I remember Alphonse Carca that lives out of town." He said, "That was my dad." And he said, were you a pilot?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." Then he went into all this. "You chased all the chickens out of my dad's farm."
Now, I don't know if you know anything about this, but I just learned about this, and since you're talking about being a pilot, someone just told me that during this time someone built a plane in Templeton.
Yeah.
You know anything about that?
The blacksmith.
Okay.
Yes. I can remember that, and you know, where he got the know-how to do that, I'll never know, because he was just a what do they call it, shoe horses?
Yeah.
Put a horseshoe on.
Farrier?
Yeah.
That's, I think, yeah.
But
What time? About what year was this? Was this while you were there or after you left?
Yes, no, it was there, but I was quite young. I imagine it was about 1925, 26, 27, along in there. But where he got the know-how to build it, I suppose he was smart. He was a very good blacksmith, and he probably got some blueprints from somebody. But it was a high wing, single engine, just a small plane, probably one just the pilot. I don't think there was room for a passenger. But he sure built it, and I remember them test hopping or flying it. Somebody did.